From hidden temple blueprints to nature's mathematical patterns, ancient monks uncovered surprising connections between numbers and the universe. Today, we'll explore how their quiet observations in monastery gardens led to remarkable discoveries about cosmic design. In the peaceful gardens of medieval monasteries, monks didn't just tend to plants, they were uncovering the hidden language of the universe. These dedicated observers noticed that certain flowers always had the same number of petals, and pine cones grew in perfect spirals. The Fibonacci sequence kept appearing, in the way leaves arranged themselves on stems, in the spiral patterns of shells, and even in the family trees of honeybees. The monks saw these patterns as proof of divine design, carefully documenting their findings in beautiful manuscripts. They believed these mathematical patterns were like fingerprints of creation, showing how everything in nature followed precise rules. What's amazing is that many of their observations still hold up today. They had stumbled upon what we now call phyllotaxis, the mathematical rules behind plant growth. Let's explore how ancient builders used math to create some of the most amazing temples in history. These clever architects didn't just stack stones. They used sacred geometry to make their buildings feel truly special. They believed certain shapes and numbers had special meaning, like the golden ratio of 1.618 to 1, which they used to make buildings look perfectly balanced. Take the Parthenon in Athens. Its front facade fits perfectly into a golden rectangle. Buddhist temples often use the mandala pattern, with everything perfectly measured from the center point outward. Medieval cathedral builders were obsessed with triangles and circles, believing these shapes connected heaven and earth. They didn't have modern tools, but they used ropes, stakes, and basic geometry to create buildings that still amaze us today. What's really cool is that many of these ancient design principles are still used by architects. The number 7 fascinated ancient monks and scholars in a unique way. They found it everywhere. 7 days of the week, 7 musical notes, 7 classical planets visible to the naked eye. In Christian tradition, God created the world in 7 days, while Buddhist texts spoke of 7 steps to enlightenment. Monks noticed that major life changes seemed to happen in 7-year cycles, from losing baby teeth to reaching adulthood. They studied how the moon changed phases roughly every 7 days, creating a natural weekly rhythm. Medieval scholars taught that 7 represented completeness and perfection. They even organized their education system around 7 liberal arts: grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. These monks weren't just picking random patterns, they were trying to understand how numbers could reveal the basic rules of life. The Fibonacci sequence might seem like a modern math concept, but medieval monks were already spotting it everywhere in their gardens. They noticed how rabbits multiplied in a special pattern: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. Each number is the sum of the 2 before it. These observant monks found this same pattern in flower petals. Lilies have 3 petals, buttercups have 5, daisies often have 34 or 55. They carefully drew these patterns in their manuscripts, using beautiful colors and gold leaf to highlight the numbers. What's really amazing is that they did this without calculators or computers. They simply watched nature and counted carefully. These medieval scholars were actually doing advanced mathematics without realizing it, recording a pattern that scientists today use to understand everything from plant growth to the shape of galaxies. The peaceful environment of monasteries turned out to be perfect for making mathematical discoveries. Monks spent hours in quiet study, which gave them time to notice things others might miss. In their libraries, they worked out complex number patterns while copying ancient texts. They created new ways to track time, designing intricate sundials and water clocks. Some monks even developed early calculation methods that helped with farm planning and cathedral building. They wrote detailed guides about measuring land and predicting seasons, using simple tools like counting beads and drawing in the dirt. Many kept careful records of their findings, passing their knowledge to future generations through beautifully written books. These quiet scholars showed us that sometimes the biggest discoveries come from patient observation and careful thinking. The golden ratio was like a special key that monks found hidden in nature's design. When they measured things like shells, flowers, and even the human body, they kept finding this magical number, about 1.618. Monks saw this ratio everywhere, in the way tree branches spread out, how seeds arranged themselves in sunflowers, and even in the spiral of galaxies. They believed this wasn't just chance. It had to be part of God's blueprint for the universe. In their quiet monastery gardens, they measured and sketched these patterns, creating beautiful drawings that showed how this divine proportion worked. What's really cool is that when they built churches and created art, they used this ratio to make things look naturally beautiful. Today, we still use this same principle in photography, architecture, and design, because it just feels right to our eyes. Monks played a huge role in figuring out how to track time accurately, a task that was way harder than you might think. They needed to know exactly when religious holidays should happen, which meant understanding both the sun and moon cycles. Using careful observations and basic math, they created detailed calendar systems that lined up solar years with lunar months. They built special tools in their monastery towers to track the sun's movement and made charts showing when eclipses would happen. These monk astronomers noticed that certain sky patterns repeated every 19 years, something we now call the Metonic cycle. Their biggest challenge was making Easter land on the right date each year, which required some pretty clever calculations. Some monasteries even carved special stone calendars that worked like ancient computers, helping them plan hundreds of years into the future. When monks weren't praying or studying scripture, many spent time exploring the connection between music and math. They discovered that pleasing musical sounds followed exact mathematical ratios. By measuring the length of strings on their instruments, they found that cutting a string exactly in half created a perfect octave. Using ratios like 3.2 and 4.3 produced other beautiful harmonies. These monks believed they had found something special, the mathematical rules behind heavenly music. They wrote detailed books showing how numbers created harmony, using drawings of instruments with precise measurements. In their grand churches, they designed spaces where these musical ratios would make voices echo perfectly. Many of their discoveries about sound and numbers are still used in music theory today. Ancient monks weren't just reading their sacred texts, they were finding hidden patterns in the words themselves. They noticed that certain important phrases appeared a specific number of times, like the name of God showing up 365 times in some texts, matching the days in a year. In Jewish tradition, each Hebrew letter had a number value, letting monks find deeper meanings through adding up words. Christian monks counted words, verses, and chapters, believing these numbers held special messages. They created beautiful manuscripts where they used different colors to highlight these patterns, making what they called numerical theology. Some even arranged their prayers in geometric shapes, where counting the words in each line revealed mathematical sequences. These monks believed that by understanding these number patterns, they could get closer to understanding divine mysteries. Looking at the monks' ancient observations through modern scientific tools has revealed something remarkable. They were often right. Today's researchers use advanced computers to confirm patterns the monks spotted just by careful watching. The Fibonacci sequence they found in flower petals. It's now known to be a basic rule of plant growth. Their observations about the golden ratio show up in modern studies of why we find certain things beautiful. Scientists have found that their musical ratios match how our brains process harmony. Even their ideas about 7-year cycles connect with what we now know about human development stages. While they explained these patterns as divine design, we now understand the natural laws behind them. But the patterns themselves are exactly what those careful monastery observers recorded. These medieval scholars, armed with just their eyes and simple tools, managed to spot universal patterns that modern science is still exploring today. Thanks for joining me on this fascinating journey through the monks' mathematical discoveries. They remind us that careful observation can reveal amazing patterns. If you enjoyed learning these secrets, hit like, subscribe, and share to spread this ancient wisdom.